Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Cycle 5858. I am Amish Cycle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news, the U.S. barreling toward a government shutdown. Just hours away, the shutdown set for midnight. If there's no agreement on funding. Both parties tonight pointing the finger at the other. President Trump threatening to fire federal workers. Democrats say they want Medicaid cuts restored and to keep health insurance premiums from going up for millions. Tonight, the U.S. military's top brass summoned to Quantico, Virginia. 800 top officers. Secretary Hegseth outlining his vision for them. What's now expected of military leaders. Talking about the highest male standard only for those who serve in the U.S. military. Then President Trump on stage saying, if you don't like what I'm saying, leave the room. Adding, of course, there goes right. The president saying he's told these training grounds for the military. Tonight, homes collapsing into the ocean, powerful waves slapping parts of the East Coast. A very rare scenario, two hurricanes right off the coast, so close together. This Fujiwara effect feeding off each other, and the new track tonight where they're headed. Tonight should clues they shoot in fair set at a Michigan church. What we've now learned tonight about that suspect, authorities say he once dated a woman of Mormon faith. They broke up, and what he said after returning from Utah. Tonight, prosecutors telling the judge they want Sean Combs to serve more than a decade in prison. What defense attorneys are saying about that. Tonight, take a close look at this actor. And now, the growing backlash tonight, the actor AI generated, created by artificial intelligence, and now looking for work. There are many opinions on this. Tonight, the famous couple breaking up, actress Nicole Kidman filing for divorce from her husband, country music star Keith Urban. Kidman and what she reveals in her filing. The controversy over the woman who appears to snatch Patrick Mahomes' headband from a child. It has gone viral, and what's happened now? In America Strong tonight, the grandson and what he was determined to do with his grandfather. You won't believe what that grandson has brought to life. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
And breaking tonight, the clock says just after midnight, the shutdown has begun. Democrats refusing to back a Republican plan to fund the government before the midnight deadline. Leaders on the right say it is all political theater.
This is a temper tantrum of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats saying, we hate Donald Trump.
We'll talk about that with the panel in moments, but first to Chad Pergram, the senior congressional correspondent. He's live for us on Capitol Hill with the very latest. Chad.
Trace, hey there. Well, consider what a government shutdown does. Government programs have just ceased a couple of moments ago because they don't have any direction or funding from Congress. And that's why President Trump today indicated that he might take great latitude in terms of programs and agencies and even employees that he might cut. He says maybe things that are important to Democrats. And that's why some Democrats have started to rethink their strategy. The story of the evening, Trace, is that you had a test vote in the Senate earlier tonight to fund the government through the 21st of November, and there were three Democrats who sided with the Republicans. John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania, you had Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada, and also Angus King, the independent from Maine, who voted with the Republicans to keep the government open, and so that ice is starting to break just a little bit on the Democratic side of the aisle. They will have another test vote tomorrow. We'll see if that makes any difference. The House of Representatives is not in session, so it's up to the Senate to align with the House, the bill that the House of Representatives passed just about a week and a half ago. Otherwise, the government's going to be shut down for several days, if not much longer. There is Yom Kippur tomorrow night, so there will be no votes in the Senate Wednesday night sundown to Thursday night sundown, and that's why some people are bracing for the first shutdown since 2019. Trace?
Chad Pergram live for us on Capitol Hill. Chad, if for some reason they come back in and vote, flag us and we'll bring you
back. They're done.
That's
not going to happen. They're done. They're done. Until tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News.
Poignant and difficult reflections on this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation.
Inequities persist, and we share a lifelong responsibility to address them.
And why denialism still lingers over the reality of residential schools. The U.S. president's Gaza peace plan, how Palestinians and Israelis feel about the proposal. Alberta teachers reject the latest contract offer, when they could strike, and how the provincial government plans to support parents.
Who's going to take over my son?
Plus, reconciliation and recipes.
It's more than just a meal.
The Indigenous entrepreneurs reclaiming their culture through cuisine.
Global Action with Donna Friesen, reporting tonight. Who Gotcha?
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Canadians are marking the 5th National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. From coast to coast to coast, ceremonies confronted the painful legacy of residential schools and honored survivors and the children who never came home. On Parliament Hill, the national commemorative gathering brought together hundreds of people, including survivors, Indigenous artists, leaders, and dignitaries. As David Aiken reports, the event carried a renewed call for reconciliation and a push for meaningful action.
This solemn ceremony and ones like it across the country have a purpose.
Today, I call on every Canadian to renew their commitment to reconciliation.
So says Canada's first and only Indigenous Governor General.
Inequities persist, and we share a lifelong responsibility to address them.
Mary Simon has been the GG for all 5 National Days for Truth and Reconciliation, but this is the first for Prime Minister Mark Carney.
On this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we honor survivors and the children who never returned home.
The date September 30th was chosen because this is the time of the year when Indigenous children were taken from their homes and forced to go to residential schools. That was Ripa Eva Carlton's life for 10 years as a girl growing up on Baffin Island.
The impacts of residential schools and colonization continue to affect our lives.
Today, the midnight deadline for the U.S. government shutdown passes. We'll take you live to Washington in just a moment. The latest. Prime Minister insists the expanded first home buyers guarantee will have a minimal impact on rising house prices.
There will be a slight increase in prices, but already 185,000 Australians have benefited.
Police say the search for a 4-year-old boy who remains missing in South Australia's north is shifting towards a recovery phase. Gus was last seen on Saturday evening. BHP shares are trading lower amid reports that China has temporarily banned shipments of its iron ore. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Rose Childs. To breaking news first, the US government has shut down after Democrats and Republicans couldn't reach an agreement to pass a spending bill. Millions of government employees will now face unpaid work or forced leave. For more, we're joined by our America's editor, John Lyons, who's in Washington. Hi there, John. So how serious is this shutdown and how long could it go for?
Well, Roz, simply hearing those words of the US government shutting down are themselves confronting. So we are coming to you live from Washington, D.C., where 2 minutes ago the United States government shut down. It's not something that happens often. It's often threatened. We often hear the Democrats and Republicans talking about not approving the other one's supply or their money bills, but it has happened now, and I think the reason this is quite different is it's the largest first shutdown for about almost 7 years. The last one came under Donald Trump's first term. That lasted 35 days. This will affect hundreds of thousands, if not more, of federal workers. Non-essential workers will be essentially sent home without pay. Essential workers, such as the National Guard.
This is Asia Now.
Good afternoon. It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Ilakia Silveraji. Your headlines this hour. The death toll from a powerful earthquake in the Philippines surges as rescue teams race to locate many still missing in the province of Cebu. Officials warn the number of casualties could still rise as a state of calamity is declared. Emergency teams also scrambling in Indonesia after a school collapsed in East Java. Dozens of students believed to be still buried in rubble as signs of life are being detected. And the US government shuts down for the first time in nearly 7 years after a bitter stalemate between Republicans and Democrats over healthcare and budget allocations yielded no agreement. Plus,
and I'm Julie Yu, live from the Milton Institute Asia Summit in Singapore. We're at the opening plenary. Singapore's Defense Minister Tan Chun Sing delivered a stark warning. Without trust and collective confidence, global fragmentation could be our future. We'll break it down. What's at stake and what leaders are being called to do this?
For you this morning, the Prime Minister sets out his agenda as he speaks to us here on GB News.
There is a political fight that has to be had, and it's about the future of our country, because at the next election, the fight will be different to the fight at every other election. It won't be Labour versus the Conservatives, it'll be Labour versus Reform.
But after Sir Keir Starmer slammed Nigel Farage in his conference speech, is the Reform UK leader right to enter into a war of words?
I think that what the Prime Minister did today was insightful, genuinely insightful. I think he descended into the gutter. Well, what do you think? Breaking overnight, the American government has shut down. This is the first time this has happened in 7 years. We're going to be bringing you updates on that, the consequences, what it all means.
Is it time to stop calling anti-immigration protesters racist? Well, as a group of women prepare to march through London today over asylum hotels, we're going to be debating just that.
GB News exclusive: grooming gang victims in Oldham still fighting for a full inquiry months after the government promised a national investigation. We'll be finding out more with our reporter Charlie Peters.
And Sport, the Champions League, Liverpool lose in Turkey, Spurs are lucky to get a point inside the Arctic Circle, and Chelsea rain on Jose's return parade. Oh, by the way, tonight, instead of Newcastle and Arsenal and Manchester City, that's all I got for you.
Another north-south split with the weather today. Often cloudy across northern areas with some rain around. Further south, mostly dry and bright once the morning fog has cleared. A similar story tomorrow, although the rain building up in western Scotland, and we do have a weather warning here. Join me later for the details.
Join us right now with the time 2 minutes past 6 o'clock. With you right through until 9:30. I'm Eamon Hopes.
I'm Ellie Costello. This is GB News Breakfast. Hello, good morning. It's 6 o'clock. On today's show, the Prime Minister triggers a bitter war of words after accusing Nigel Farage of hating Britain. It's Wednesday, the 1st of October. Sir Keir Starmer tells Sky News that he doesn't think Nigel Farage is a racist, but says he's pursuing a racist policy on immigration.
I want to serve the whole of this country, this beautiful, tolerant, diverse country. The alternative, this toxic division, would tear apart who we are as a country.
Also ahead, Princess Anne makes a surprise visit to Ukraine in support of children affected by war. The US government shuts down after last-ditch negotiations fail and funding is cut off. Plus, we report on the growing campaign to throw Israel out of Eurovision over allegations of genocide in Gaza. And disappointment in the Champions League for the Special One Benfica boss Jose Mourinho loses on his return to Stamford Bridge. Good morning. The Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has insisted he doesn't believe Nigel Farage or his supporters are racist, but says they're pursuing racist policies on immigration. Sir Keir was speaking to our political editor Ben Rigby after he used his keynote conference speech to accuse the Reform leader of hating Britain. His deputy, David Lammy, even accused Mr Farage of having once flirted with Hitler Youth, provoking an angry response from Reform and eventually a retraction. Here's Beth's interview.
Prime Minister, do you think Nigel Farage is a racist?
No, nor do I think Reform voters are racist. They're concerned about things like our borders. They're frustrated about the pace of change. So I'm not for a moment suggesting that they are racist. I was talking about a particular policy and making a distinction, and a really important distinction in my mind, between deporting those who have no right to be here, illegally here, which this government is doing, and I agree with, and on the other hand, reaching into migrants lawfully here who've been here for years, working in our hospitals, our schools, and deporting them. Yes. That, to me, would tear our country apart.
But why is it a racist policy to deport people who are legally living here if they don't meet
Stokes, global health and emergencies, and Swiss politics and finance.
John Zaracostas, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Hello and a warm welcome if you're just joining us. You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. These are the headlines this hour. The US government in shutdown. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers could be furloughed or even laid off as Republicans and Democrats clash over health care. We'll be crossing live to our Washington correspondent Fraser Jackson, while Douglas Herbert is with us in the studio to bring us his analysis, and Emily Boyle will be letting us know how it's all being reported in the international papers. At least 36 people killed by Israeli forces in Gaza on Tuesday alone. Many shot while trying to get food at a distribution site. Others bombed in their tents. The onslaught continues, but also pushing forward the global Samud flotilla, now less than 300 kilometers from Gaza shores. It reports increased drone activity over its vessels. Throwing calls for the president to go. Protests in Madagascar continue despite the dismissal of the government and the Prime Minister. Demonstrators there angry at a lack of electricity, water and other services. The US government is in shutdown. Democrats calling for healthcare provisions to be maintained, clash with Republicans and vote against a bill to keep funding the government. It's the first time in 7 years, so not since Donald Trump's first term. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers could now be furloughed or laid off. Democrats want to negotiate an extension of health subsidies and a restoration of Medicaid, which has seen sizable cuts. Here's a quick listen, first of all, to the Senate speakers from both sides.
We didn't ask Democrats to swallow any new Republican policies. We didn't add partisan riders. We simply asked Democrats to extend existing funding levels to allow the Senate to continue the bipartisan appropriations work that we started. And the Senate Democrats said no. Why? Because far-left interest groups and far-left Democrat members wanted a showdown with the president.
Now, why do we care so much about them negotiating with us? It's not a point of pride. It's because American...
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has told a meeting of America's highest-ranking generals and admirals that he's overhauling the military, as well as ending political correctness and launching a review of what constitutes toxic leadership and bullying. Hundreds of senior officers were called in from deployments around the world for the address in Virginia. U.S. President Donald Trump has told Hamas to sign his peace plan for Gaza, or they'll pay in hell. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and a number of Arab and Western nations have backed the proposal. It includes the return of Israeli hostages and the reconstruction of Gaza. The Israeli attacks have continued despite the plan. The UN has called on the Taliban to reverse their ban on the internet and telecommunications in Afghanistan. It warns the blackout could worsen the humanitarian crisis, particularly for women there who often have no other way to communicate. It's also brought some businesses to a standstill. The
Taliban say the internet spreads immorality. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find more on our website, dw.com.
The clock is ticking for Hamas, according to U.S. President Donald Trump. The president says he's given the militant group 3 or 4 days to accept his peace plan for Gaza or face a, quote, very sad end. Now, that sad end would be determined by Israel, according to Trump, and Israel would have the president's full backing. But what about the past 2 years? If 2 years of war haven't forced Hamas to its knees, what impact can a Trump threat really have? And if Hamas does say yes, who or what can ensure that this will be a real peace? A lasting peace. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. This is The Day.
So this is a big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. But now it's time for Hamas to accept the terms of the plan.
If Hamas rejects your plan, then Israel will finish the job.
Africa News. The news.
South Africa's ambassador to France has been found dead at the Vert of a high-rise hotel in the west of Paris. According to French media reports, Ambassador Nkosinati Mtetwa was reported missing by his wife on Monday afternoon after she received a text message from him that concerned her. His phone was traced to the Bois de Boulogne, but he wasn't located. Paris police say Mtetwa had reserved a room on the 22nd floor of the Hyatt Hotel in Porte-Maillot. The room's secured window was forced open, and Mtetwa's body was found by the hotel at about 1 p.m. on Tuesday. Mtetwa began his career as an anti-apartheid activist in 1990 when he joined the Youth League of the African National Congress. He went on to become a member of parliament and held several ministerial positions. He was appointed ambassador to France and permanent delegate to UNESCO in March 2024. The trial of former Malian Prime Minister Moussa Mara got underway in the capital Bamako on Monday. He's been charged with undermining the credibility of the state, opposing legitimate authority, and inciting public disorder. This follows comments Mara made in July on social media after visiting detained opposition figures in jail. In a post on X, he expressed solidarity with the men, describing them as prisoners of conscience. Mara served as Prime Minister for 9 months a decade ago and has recently become an outspoken critic of the military government. The junta, led by General Assimi Goïta, came to power following 2 coups in 2020 and 2021. Earlier this year, he dissolved all political parties following rare anti-government protests, and in July, approved a law granting himself a 5-year presidential mandate renewable without elections.
After 25 years, the African Growth and Opportunity Act has officially expired on Tuesday, leaving the future of trade between the United States and Africa in uncertainty. The agreement has given thousands of products from African nations duty-free access to U.S. markets. In Kenya, workers of the textile and clothing industry now fear job cuts.
All those years, this has been my bread and butter. I only depend on this job. So if it is gone, it means my life is gone too.
During the life of the agreement, textile and apparel exports from Kenya to the US have grown from about $50 million to around $500 million.
Really, if AGOA goes away, we have zero chance to compete with the Asian countries. There's no way we can survive. I'm very convinced, as a sector chair and as a own businessman, it is not going to be a survival for us. The whole house of cards will collapse very quickly.
At the United Nations General Assembly last week, Kenyan President William Ruto said he was seeking a 5-year extension of AGOA.
America, being protectionist, protecting its money.
Tonight, the countdown to a shutdown. The bitter battle with Congress deadlocked ahead of that midnight deadline. 750,000 workers said to be furloughed. The president threatening some could lose their jobs permanently. What it means for Social Security, student loans, national parks, and air travel. Also breaking tonight, home after home, collapsing into the surf in the Outer Banks. Plus, the defense secretary and the commander-in-chief's eye-opening speech to top military brass. New fitness test standards, new grooming rules, troops, and drill instructors allowed to put their hands on recruits. The president telling top generals to get on board or get out. Shocking video and deputy suspended after kicking and threatening a group of teens while he was off duty, but partially in uniform, even pulling his gun as they cried out for help. Could one of the most popular birth control options in the country be linked to tumors? 1,000 women filing a new lawsuit. The deadly earthquake rocking the Philippines. Bridges and buildings swaying, sending people running into the streets. The catastrophic school collapse. Rescuers sending oxygen into the rubble, trying to save students still trapped inside. Diddy set to be sentenced. His plans to address the court on the day of his hearing. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC with Tom Yamas.
Good evening, I'm Amna Navaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the News Hour tonight, a government shutdown is set to take effect within hours, with congressional leaders and the White House unable to reach a deal to fund the government.
President Trump uses a gathering of top military leaders to promote a crackdown on what he sees as threats from within the United States.
This is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war too. It's a war from within.
And we take a closer look at the factors pushing more mothers out of the workforce.
What happens is as soon as they have children, you see women's earnings decrease significantly that first year or so, and then she never recovers.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump says he's nearing a deal to end Israel's assault on Gaza and the return of Israeli hostages and Palestinians held in Israeli prisons. On Monday, Trump welcomed Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to the White House, where he announced a 20-point peace plan for the Gaza Strip. Trump said he fully supports Israel's goal of destroying Hamas unless it accepts the proposal. The plan calls for a post-war Gaza authority secured by an international security force that would gradually replace Israeli troops occupying Gaza. It would split the Gaza Strip from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. It would sideline key Palestinian political figures and would instead be run by an international body called the Board of Peace, led by Donald Trump. The board would also include former British Prime Minister Tony Blair. That prompted former UK Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn to write, quote, Tony Blair's catastrophic decision to invade Iraq cost thousands upon thousands of lives. He shouldn't be anywhere near the Middle East, let alone Gaza. It's not up to Blair, Trump, or Netanyahu to decide the future of Gaza. It's up to the people of Palestine, Corbyn said. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu apologized to Qatar's Prime Minister for violating Qatar's sovereignty in its airstrike on Doha earlier this month. The attack targeted Hamas leaders discussing a potential ceasefire, but failed to strike its primary targets, instead killing 5 Palestinians and a Qatari security officer. Netanyahu apologized for killing the Qatari security officer. Meanwhile,
Dudes in dresses, a rare gathering of America's military brass gets an earful. No more Identity Month, DEI offices. Dudes in dresses, a rare gathering of America's military brass gets an earful from their civilian leaders.
We should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military.
Also tonight, the clock is ticking toward a government shutdown. What exactly will be shut down and what won't?
Eye on America, a lesson in how a small town can make a big comeback.
This starts at the root of people who want to change their community.
And another sport rocked by scandal, a rock scandal.
I said, how's how you're throwing? And he's like, oh yeah, all this controversy and didn't even win.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News. Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois.
I'm John Dickerson.
The gathering of America's top generals and admirals at the U.S. Marine Base in Quantico, Virginia today was extraordinary, and what they heard from their commander-in-chief and their Secretary of Defense, no less so.
President Trump suggested using America's cities for their
again, he called fat generals and admirals, wokeness in the military, service members with beards, beardos he called them, and said male-level physical fitness standards will be required for combat. Anyone who does not like all of this, Hegseth said, can leave.
And for a president used to cheers at his political speeches and adulation from those who work for him, today was different. Charlie D'Agata joins us from the Pentagon.
Very different in so many ways, John. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Dan Kane started the meeting by saying it was unprecedented, the scale of senior military officers, what he called the first leaders all call. No one was sure quite what to expect in what turned into a political rally. Nearly 800 of America's top military leaders were summoned from around the globe, apolitical officers who remained silent as their commander-in-chief took the stage and offered this greeting.
You can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
That set the tone for more awkward moments to come, including the president's suggestion that dangerous U.S. cities like those where National Guard are currently deployed should be used as training grounds for U.S. troops.
This is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within.
Illinois Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Iraq War veteran, said Trump's proposal is illegal
and unconstitutional. You cannot deploy our military onto the streets of our cities.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth opened the meeting and ripped into diversity initiatives put in place by previous administrations.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions.
That includes, he said, a return to the highest.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.